Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. Today is May 27th, 2019, and we are recording episode 32. In tonight's episode, we are extending our stay on Roshar just a little bit longer. This time, we're going to be discussing Edgedancer, a short novella featuring Lift, which takes place between books 2 and 3 of the Stormlight archive. I am Bill, and I am joined, as always, by my awesome co-host, Amy and Jordan. And if you didn't see that coming a mile away, then where have you been for the last year?
You see, I thought you might switch it up and go with starving, but...
Oh, no. Oh. I want that low-hanging fruit.
You're going to lean in? You're going to lean into it.
Oh, yeah. The low-hanging fruit is sometimes the ripest and most juicy. So, welcome, guys.
That feels like advice. I don't know why. That's a cone somewhere.
I am expressing true wisdom. Yes. Come sit at the feet of me. Okay.
So humble, too.
For those of you who listen to the podcast recordings or watch the videos on YouTube, we do want to remind you that you can join and interact with us live via chat as we record each episode at www.twitch.tv/innkeeperstable. We record episodes every other Monday night starting at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. So please join us, take an active part of the discussion. Be our friends. We like you. We don't even know you, but we already like you. That's just how friendly we are.
Mm-hmm.
This is true.
Anyway, so today, before we dive in, there actually have been a few pieces of news that dropped today. Mm-hmm. Jordan, do you want to start us off with your cool...
Oh, yeah. So
we just talked about this.
Yeah. Sorry. It was just cool. Today, Brandon revealed that he's working on a Six of the Dusk novella. Which was kind of funny just because he had confirmed that he was working on a non-Stormlight Cosmere novella, which, you know,
he has tweeted vaguely about.
Yeah, vaguely about, and to which then someone just like, hey, you Mistborn, because that's his Reddit name, and he hints as to what the novella is, and then he does respond and just says, it's a sequel. The problem for me is I see that, and my first thought is just like, he better answer this, because if he doesn't, all I'm going to do is sit here and be like, is it Secret History 2? Secret History 2? Secret History 2? Because I really, really want that. And then someone just asked the question, Seventh of the Dusk, and then he responds, I suppose I shouldn't be coy, as there aren't many stories this could be. Yes, it's a sequel to Six of the Dusk. I've spoken about wanting to do one. Unfortunately, I only had time to get a little ways into it. I suspect I'll pick it back up on the flight to Spain in July. And if I don't finish it then, I have another long haul back in October to visit France and then Israel. It's generally hard to do Stormlight on flights like that. The books are too intricate and the distractions too multitudinous. But novellas tend to work, so we'll see if we can get that one done on one of these trips.
Yeah, I mean, he did that with the first Alcatraz. He did it with Legion. So it makes sense.
Okay, I'm excited.
Somebody, one of our fans, please sample that and send it in to us, because I want that on a soundboard.
I can do it on command if I'm excited enough.
Sometimes, but
yeah.
Sometimes it's just the way it happened that one time. There's a special kind of magic.
It's recorded. We're good.
All right, guys. So Edgedancer. So this one was interesting to me because first off, I tried reading it like 3 times before I actually was able to get it finished. I don't know what it was, but just it took me a while to get into. that's that's not saying anything against the story, because the same thing is true of the first Mistborn book, and we all know how I feel about that one. So, but for some reason, I kept falling asleep as I was reading it or listening to it just at the beginning, because it does start kind of slow.
Yeah.
It's Lift musing with Wyndle.
You see, and I just find that so fun.
I do enjoy it. It's fun. I like Wyndle and Lift.
Yeah. I mean, and they are a lot of fun, particularly in the later part. And that's the other thing, is like the later part of this is absolutely gripping to me. It's just the lead up that takes me a little bit to get into.
Yeah, I love all the growth they have in this book. I mean, it's a short book, but there's a lot of growth. And poor little Wyndle, he really, I want to say grows a spine, but he really puts himself out there a lot more than he has before. And he's like, okay, we got to be the heroes. I guess we got to be the heroes. But just go do the thing.
Well, she actually has a line about that. He's like, it's good because he actually stood up to her a little bit early on. She's like, it's good to see him show some backbone, or whatever the plant equivalent of that was. Back bark?
Back bark?
Back bark? Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's definitely a lot of character growth in this. Not just with Lift, but, because we see a lot of main characters in this one showing up. You've got Lift, you've got Zeth, you've got Nail. And all three of them have something. Zeth probably the least of everyone, because he's still kind of coping with,
dying.
dying and coming back. Also, the fact that his entire belief system has been shattered and rebuilt around him.
Well, and on top of that, he's not sure what to believe, because at first, because he knows that they're back, but Nail is still in denial.
Well, and one thing the other thing Brandon has said when he's talking about the heralds is never fully trust anything a herald is. They're all quite mad.
They've had plenty of time to get just a little screwy.
Well, it's not just a matter of time. It's the fact that, they broke the
thousands of times
biggest oath. No, I'm talking about like this oath.
Oh, the oath. Yeah,
they walked away from
after breaking thousands of times.
Thousands of times.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's justifiable, even if it's
all
not
of
good.
them are kind of messed up. Brandon has said, never trust anything. Never take at face value anything that a herald says, because they're all quite mad.
Yeah.
Which is apparently a line that Brandon likes, because that's also the opening sentence of Legion. But that's beside the point.
I need to reread that.
It's a good one. Okay, so what's going on with Lift right now? We start off, and she's just sort of surfing.
She's surfing, and she's going to, is it Yada or is it
Yeda?
Yada. Okay.
Yeda is a city in Teshik.
Okay, that's where I kept getting confused, because I read it and then the place names just wandered away.
Teshik is the country, Yeda is the city that she's in.
Yes. So she's going, and Wyndle has no idea why they left, because they had a cushy life back with Emperor Gox and everything. And he finally gets out. Yeah, he finally gets out of her that she wants to eat the 10 pancakes that are in Tashik.
Very natural.
Yeah. Of course, it's Lift.
Well,
that's what she does.
I forget. Is that an all-year thing, or is there a particular festival?
No, it's a festival that they're doing. I can't remember what the festival's called, but that's why she has to go now, is because this is when the festival is.
It's like when Denny's had those Hobbit-based meals.
I miss the Hobbit meals. Those were special meals. Those were amazing.
As you can guess, we went a few times when those were going on.
They had lemon poppy seed French toast, and it was unbelievable.
It actually kind of was.
Sounds good.
Now I understand how Lift feels, I think.
Yeah.
Because I'm really hungry suddenly.
But that's not the only reason, but that's the only thing she admits to Wyndle at the beginning.
Yeah, so this whole conversation between Lift and Wyndle, it's a really great opportunity for Brandon to throw some exposition in. And because, for example, we find out a lot about Wyndle's backstory, because as he complains, he throws it in. Yep. He's like, I could have been gardening my chairs. And of course, Lift while she's chewing on a napkin. Is it chairs?
What?
He's like, Yes, I had a beautiful garden of chairs. I even had a couple of thrones in there. Some spoonbacks.
And yeah, he's listing all these different kinds that he...
And it just does so much to set Wyndle's character, because suddenly you're like, I know who you are. I've read your character in other books. And it's a very nice way to get a lot of character development in a very short time. And then he's talking... We also find out, because... we've learned about the honor spren. We've learned about the cryptics in the previous books. And this is the third type of spren we really get a deeper look into when Wyndle's talking about, we're not that important, but we saw the honor spren and the cryptics moving, and we said we got to jump on this. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Wyndle almost was bonded to Yim. And then they decided to go with Lift instead, and Yim got bonded to a light spren. So.
Then bonded to the end of a shard blade.
Dude, that's too soon.
Too soon.
It's really not.
But yeah.
Did you want to talk about your thing, Jordan?
So I just found it interesting when he's listing that they're following following just the lead of the honor spren and the cryptics. He doesn't mention the high spren because they've never stopped bonding, and he doesn't bring up the ink spren, even though they're important as well.
To be fair, he says the honor spren and the cryptids and the others.
Yeah, but the thing I found interesting about that is because those are the two that we know are currently bonding people. Because it's like, even though Yesna bonded hers a lot longer ago, we also know her spren, Ivory, is a bit of a rebel amongst his kind. And so I found it sort of interesting that what he says sort of parallels what we know from Ivory.
Well, and of course, Shallan bonded hers a long time ago, too.
Yeah.
And so.
But Yesna bonded hers back in...
King Gavilar.
Yeah.
Not quite.
Right, but Shallan bonded hers when she was a child.
Yeah.
So she probably did it before Yasna, even if she didn't realize it. Or didn't remember it.
You think so? I thought Yesna was 35.
But that only happened 5 years ago.
Yeah, 6 years ago, I believe.
Or 6 years ago, with Ivory.
Exactly.
For bonding Ivory, and Shallan was a child. She was like 10.
It was about 10 years ago. Shallan was likely, of the ones that we've seen bonded, she was probably the first one.
So Shallan is 17, right? About 17?
Yes.
And she was about 10, so it's probably about 7 years then.
So maybe around the same time. Was
so
it
close?
Was she 10? Okay. For some reason, I imagined her as
younger.
Because
I remember there's when she's 11 and 12 are when her backstory scenes are starting. So I'm guessing it's when she's 10 or 11, around there.
I'm not
anyway,
sure. I'm
it's
not
our
sure.
guess.
And this is it's not worth dwelling on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they basically. It's shown that the Spren are kind of noticing, they do have their own society. Because remember, this is before Oathbringer and a lot of stuff hasn't quite developed
out yet, yeah.
But, so we're starting to see, okay, the Spren have societies, they have kingdoms. He mentions the Cultivationspren don't have a kingdom or a cities, and suddenly it's like, wait, there are kingdoms? There are cities?
What?
Okay,
yeah.
so...
Yeah, because we haven't really seen Shadesmar yet.
Exactly. The only look at Shadesmar we've had is Shallan's few brief steps in when she's soul casting.
And then Yesna's one...
And Yesna's...
in the beginning of...
the prologue.
Words of Radiance.
Yeah, the prologue. We see Yesna going in as well.
It's just... I just find it very interesting. I love hearing Wyndle. First of all... I said this last time, I'm going to say it again. The voice acting job on Wyndle, I love. It's perfectly...
See, and it doesn't quite fit for me, but that's because I always picture Piglet's voice actor.
Oh,
for it.
You want Jim?
See, I haven't heard it, so I don't know.
Oh no, it's just he's very suffering and very kind of whiny, but in a
Put out.
you'll understand why he is the way he is, because Lift is very taxing.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Because not only did he bond someone with the personality of Lift, he bonded someone who doesn't follow any of the normal rules of anything.
Right. That's the interesting thing, is that Lift is the only Edgedancer we've seen. And because she's the only Edgedancer we've seen, and she doesn't follow any of the basic rules, we still don't know a lot about the Edgedancers.
Yeah, because she's the exception, and we haven't seen the rule at all. So we don't know where she is following the rules and where she's totally not doing it.
Well, and I love when she's like, "Can I eat you and get the benefits from it?" And he's just like, almost assuredly not, because that would mean you're like violating the laws of the universe, and no, these aren't the type of laws even you can break, although maybe you can. I don't know.
I don't know. You keep surprising me.
Well, to the point where I love it how she threatened, like she decides to threaten him. She's like, "I'll bite you." She's like, "You're what? I'll bite you." It's like, I'm sure, like, even if you didn't break your teeth, I wouldn't taste good. She's like, "That's not the matter. It's food isn't what I'm talking about. It's punishment that matters." He's just like, what? Lift has such an interesting way of looking at the world.
Interesting. Yes, that's
especially because she has such confidence in her perspective that anyone who disagrees with her or deviates, she's like, "You must be crazy," because this is, because this is the way the world is. I see it clearly right here. And
well, but that throws an extra twist in things, because she starts to finally break out of some mindsets in this book, because she's pretty sure that, or at least from what I remember, that she is suspecting that her agreement with the Night Watcher, her gift or whatever you call it, is wearing off or isn't working, because she's like, "Because I am changing, even if I don't want to admit it."
Let's talk about that, actually, because I think that's interesting. Because it sounds like that's what she went and she asked for.
Yeah,
now,
from what I remember is that the world would change, but she wouldn't.
Right, but so far as I remember, the Night Watcher doesn't necessarily give you the boon that you ask for. She gives you the boon that she thinks you need.
Yeah.
So, like, you go and you ask a boon, but she doesn't necessarily give you the boon that you're asking for. And so Lift thinks, okay, I'm not changing, but she realizes physically she is. And which
she's been 10 for like 3 or 4 years.
This also, I find this really interesting, because one of the things that Brandon has told us is, this is a series of 10 books split into 2 sets of 5, and each one has a viewpoint character with flashbacks and everything. Lift, her book is in the second half, and there's supposed to be like a 10 to 15 year time skip.
Ooh.
So I'm just like, hopefully that means that we're going to see what Lift is like in 10 to 15 years, when she should technically be a young woman. Will she be a young woman? Will she mentally develop beyond? Will she physically develop beyond? What's going on with her? And I feel like it'll be really interesting to see her that way. I'm personally hoping she grows up a bit, because I want to see what she would be like.
Because I think even in here you do see some emotional growth that she finally does take the second. The
third ideal.
The third ideal. She finally does that, and she also starts to admit that she needs to take responsibility for things. It's just part of the third ideal, and she responsibility, which is part of growing up.
She also admits that Wyndle probably isn't a Voidbringer.
Yeah, she finally does at the very end. She's like, you probably aren't one.
He's just like,
I think you aren't a Voidbringer. As he's been trying to tell her that for so long.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so there's a few scenes that stand out a lot that I would love to discuss. The first one is when she first gets to Yeddaw, and she's at the checkpoint, and she pops her head out of this grain cart freaking out the poor farmer who's been.
Well, she's seen like moving around underneath it, and they pull back the tarp or whatever, and that's when she pops up.
It's a tarp.
And well, the thing that's interesting is technically because of her ability to make herself frictionless, she could sink herself down into the grain rather easily. I would believe, although the grain has friction against itself, but still.
Well, but it's really cool what she does because first of all, she shows what a scamp she is because she follows underneath the carriage, and at first they don't see her because they actually check the grain.
Yeah,
and no one's in there.
And then she is.
And then she is, and
well, because she can Spider-Man up into the grain,
but I just love when she shows up. They're just the guy because the guy's the smuggler, and he's just like, hey, she's in my grain.
She's contaminating it.
And she's just like, wow, this stuff tastes awful.
I can see why you cook it first.
And then she's like, hey, is that pancakes? Yeah, you can have some if thanks. And she hears
like,
what she
bounces
wants
off
to hear.
shoulders and everything else too.
Well, and the thing is, she doesn't feel bad about messing this guy up because he's already admitted that he's a smuggler.
Oh, yeah.
It's already clear that he's smuggling and shouldn't be doing it. So she just dumps the grain. And
uses it as a way to get down. And then I think Wyndle's like, oh, that was so generous of you to help feed these people. And she's like, I wanted a soft landing.
Just in case I wasn't able to actually grab onto you.
Yeah.
The thing is, I don't believe her for a second.
Well, the other thing I love is that, like, especially the perspective that she gives is it's that she just went and she jumped off the cliff.
She just
and Wyndle saw her and darted after. She said, "Oh, good, he's starting to figure it out." But that's the thing; she jumps, not knowing whether he's figured it out or not. She's just like, "Oh, he's gonna follow.
He'll be fine. I'm awesome. I'm good."
It's that confidence. Like, I read a quote that I absolutely love. It says, "Go throughout your day with the confidence of a 4-year-old wearing a Batman T-shirt." And that's kind of what she does. She's like, she jumps because she knows whatever happens, she's got this.
Oh.
Well, and
having a 4-year-old, I can agree so much. And
poor Wyndle's just like, oh no. And, she just thinks this is the way things are. And he's just like, it doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's probably right. She's got this. Mm-hmm. What does Wyndle know?
Yeah, there's somebody who insults her and says she's a terrible edge dancer and says like she's not enough.
Nail. That was in
this one or is it the previous one?
It's in the first book. She remembers it in this one.
He does
that's right.
Well, he does it again in this book actually.
Does he?
Yeah, because he says
when they're
you're an
in
insult
Stump's house,
to
right?
this order. And
but you have heard of me.
She's like, of course. She's like, of course I am. She's like, some days I'm a. What was it she said? Some days I'm an insult to myself. And he's like, of course you are. Because that sentence doesn't mean anything.
He's like, what does that even mean? But yeah. Okay, so let's see. So
which other scene did you want to talk about?
Well, there's just so many different plot points that are going on. So she goes around... she enters the city, and then the first thing she looks for is urchins, because if you want to figure out what's going on, there's a network in most big cities of criminals and particularly urchins because they have to work together to survive. Mm-hmm. And she's the perfect person because she herself is an urchin, and I love the fact that she starts talking to this one little girl who's speaking in a very strong dialect. Mm-hmm. And she just instantly picks it up.
Yeah, and poor Wyndle's like, what are you talking about? She's like, words are words.
Words is words. But the little... And there's a little bit of foreshadowing because what does the little girl say, after, she's... at the very end, she says, are you listening? And Liz says, yeah. She says, yeah, people, they don't listen. And what is her ideal end up being? I will listen to those who have been ignored. Mm-hmm. And it's a really interesting piece of foreshadowing that Brandon slipped in there. because it
Yeah,
kind of
and
gets your head on that concept.
And there's she has a bunch of, I think it's leading right up to her saying the third eye, but that she has a bunch of remembering things that different people have said that all tie in together.
Yeah.
Well, and then on top of it, I just like that she like specifically learns that when she says I'm going to listen to those who are being ignored, that includes Nail. He's being ignored because people just write him off as, he's a bad guy and he's hurting people, and
He's just
Well,
crazy.
to that climactic point at the end of the story, where he sort of has the same kind of breakdown that Zeth had in the last book, and she hugs him, and it's just this pure moment. You know, Lift is this snot-nosed little urchin who's running around and telling fart jokes and all this stuff, but at that moment, you know, she's like, she knows when to be serious, and she hugs him, at which point he's just like, this is too much, and he takes off, and he's like, I just got to get out of here. Which sets up a lot of his arc. We won't go into it because we're not in that book yet, but it sets up a lot of Nail's arc for Oathbringer. Brandon said he had a lot of realizations for Nail to have that needed to happen in Oathbringer, but he
wanted him on screen.
He wanted him on screen, and so that's one of the reasons he wrote Edgedancer in the first place. Because honestly, if you think about it, it is an odd story, because Lift needs to be an Aesir at the end of Words of Radiance, and she needs to be an Aesir at the beginning of Oathbringer. So she kind of comes down and goes right back.
But what's interesting is for her, that's a lot of progress because she's such a vagabond.
Oh yeah,
and she doesn't.
The fact
let
that she's
herself
going
grow
back,
roots.
right?
Yeah, she refuses to do it. She like purposefully does not let roots go down, because then, what is it? She's like, yeah, the people at the restaurants know my name and they know my order, and she's not comfortable with that level of familiarity.
Well, to the point where it starts off in a conversation with Wyndle, where he asks why she's never gone to visit Reshi, because it's been expressed several times she's a Reshi girl. That's her nationality. That's where she technically is from. And she doesn't answer that question. Instead, she talks about why they had to leave Aesir, and like you said, how people were starting to know her. And she says they start to expect you to be one person rather than the person that you really are.
Yeah.
And Wyndle asks her, who is the person you really are? And she doesn't answer him.
She doesn't know at that point.
Because she's not quite sure. She's confused. She's still trying to figure all this stuff out. One thing I did notice in this book, especially, Lift keeps remembering her mother. We don't
especially
know any
like soft
specifics
moments
about
or anything
her.
like that. Yeah.
But like, and that's the thing. She's like, there needs to be soft things in the world, like, you know, clothes and blankets and mothers. And it's just this very, very poignant moment. Like, you get this glimpse into who Lift is behind this facade that she puts up, because she's several different people, but there's one face that she tries to present the most, and you start to sort of realize in this, that's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Lift is a lot more vulnerable than she lets herself be.
And you do find out a little bit of what happened to her mother. I remember she says that it sounds like, so she never knew her father, and her mom gets sick, and it's just up to Lift to take care of her, and so she probably has to watch her mom die.
Right.
As she's trying to take care of her, and obviously can't cure her at that point or heal her.
It's interesting because this little girl who refuses to grow up has been forced to grow up at a very young age. And so she's just this really, really interesting mix of life experiences and characteristics.
It almost seems like she clings to childish behaviors because she wants to not let herself grow up. That she's like, no, I have to do the fart jokes and whatever else, and do the things and be skittish and random and different things, because she doesn't want to accept responsibility, because the last time it was shoved on her, her mom died.
Yeah. And so suddenly you just start to see, oh, again, this is a defense mechanism. This is
Yeah, she ends up reminding you, in some ways, like Shalon, where they avoid the problem rather than actually dealing with the problem.
Oh,
you cut out.
Oh,
you froze and we didn't hear.
Well, it's just I was saying she's a lot like Shalon, where she refuses to face the problem. Now, unlike Shalon copes by pretending to be someone else, whereas Lift copes by getting the heck out of Dodge and just not facing it.
Or putting up walls. Shalon basically hides in other personalities. Lift puts up walls.
Yeah.
To protect herself. Okay, so Lift eventually makes her way to Tashi's Light Orphanage, where we meet a very interesting character.
Stump.
The Stump. And the reason they call her the Stump is just she's very immovable, isn't it?
Doesn't she also look kind of squat from her description?
Yeah, I thought she was kind of squat too.
She's a bit gnarled and old and grumpy and just yeah. And it's really interesting. Stump's character is absolutely fascinating because she has this gruff persona, but as the story goes on, we realize, she cares for these kids a lot. And you can tell she kind of realizes what she's doing because she's actively exchanging dun spheres for infused ones. But she also doesn't entirely, to the point where she thinks that these kids are lying to her because they come in. She heals them.
And then she's like, well, obviously you were faking the whole time.
Exactly. And so it's sort of, and you kind of see her come to grips with it at the end. She's like, I've been doing this, haven't I?
I think Lift says something too.
But her response is, I kind of have known. But, now I know for certain. And she says, hey, come to, doesn't she try and get her to join with
No.
the other Radiants? Or am I remembering that wrong?
You're remembering, that must be from later, because she doesn't know yet.
Okay.
About all that.
Okay. For some reason, I thought they did.
She does mention, like you have something, like you'll see something, and she describes something like Wyndle, but she says it's something else instead.
She says
like
for her she sees little reflections of light, which is what lets us know, okay, she's a Truth Watcher. Because Truth Watchers have light spren, and they also are the only other ones who have external healing. They can heal somebody else. I think it's the Surge of Progression is what it's called.
Yeah, I think that's what it's called, yeah. I always get my surges mixed up.
But the other thing I find interesting about her is, like, you see how she really does try to help these kids. Like, at first, because it's from Lift's perspective, she's just like, oh, what a grouchy old woman, and
it's a terrible place like all the other orphanages.
Yeah, and then she actually has to, like, she sees her, like, caring for kids. Like, you see the one kid who's, like, getting overwhelmed, and she, like, puts earmuffs on him. And so, it's like, okay, he has some sort of, maybe it's
sensory
autism or, something like that.
Sensory overload, yeah.
But she's actually caring enough about the kid and is paying attention to them. And
the other...
No, go ahead.
No. Well, the other thing that we kind of pick up from it is we start to learn a bit more about Cosmere healing, about especially the Surge of Progression, because, for example, there's the boy who first greets Lift when she gets there, and she recognizes that he's different, but he was born that way.
It sounds to me kind of
because
like
of that, you can't really heal she can't really heal somebody who was born that way from birth, because cognitively that's the way they are. That's their identity. That's who they've always been. And so you can't really go in and change that, but like the people who have had an injury recently or something.
Yeah, there's a kid named Mick who gets dropped off by his mom, and she can see that he hurt his head.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
He's gotten some sort of concussion, or like serious concussion, to the point where it's affected his cognitive abilities.
Yeah.
But he's still himself, and he ends up getting healed.
Yeah, even Lift can see it, and she starts to think that it's her, because every time she sees him, he's a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, because she knows that she can heal people.
Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, she saw it with Gox. That's a pretty big healing.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing that's interesting is we find out that essentially Lift, like, because there are several potential reasons that come up for why Lift had to leave Azir and why she came here. Mm-hmm. And, you know, she found out that Nail was coming here.
Yeah.
And Wyndle's immediate thought is, wait, are you chasing him down? What are you doing? And then we finally find out she realizes that if he's coming here, then he's probably looking for another Radiant, and she has to protect them.
Mm-hmm. She has to help him out.
And but so Stump is actually
she herself doesn't
who she
quite
was
know
looking
that
for.
yet.
Right.
And that's what's interesting about her is...
Well, part of me thinks that she does, but Lift is in such denial.
That she does it without fully realizing that's why she's doing it.
To the point where she lies to herself. Mm-hmm. You know, she's like, no, we're going because...
The pancakes.
Because I'm a wanderer. We're going for pancakes. That's the only reason. Mm-hmm. At one point, she says, you know, we're going for... I can't remember what reason she says. And then the next paragraph is just for that reason. No other. And I'm just like, the lady doth protest too much, methinks. Except that she's not in love. She's just sort of, you know, because...
Yeah. I mean, it can apply to other things, too.
But, yeah. And it's just... But suddenly you see her arguing with herself, and it's just this tiny little blink and you'll miss it moment. But on a subsequent read, you're just like, oh, she's lying to herself. There's more to this.
Yeah, I picked up a lot more of her slow personal growth being woven into the story this time around. Because last time I was too focused on plot and what was going on, and this time I didn't have to work as hard at that, so I could sit there and go and pick up the little details here and there. Mm-hmm.
Now, when she visits the Indicium, first off, I love the fact that every time she calls it something different. Because she's just like, Indicium's a big word. It's dumb. I'm gonna come. You know, I have to remember it. It means I don't even remember all of them. But just she comes up with some other name, and I actually didn't notice this the first time because I was just like the Indicium. Okay, the I word, that I thing that she it's like the library. Yes. But I love that she sneaks in. Just the whole encounter with the scribes. And you know, she walks in and there's like, wait here. And she starts... Well, first she wants to write to Azir. And then she's like, oh, right. I can't read. Wyndle,
Poor Wyndle.
You make the patterns and I'll copy them. And
Wyndle's like, you didn't pay attention?
I just love that Wyndle did.
Yeah, I'm like, Wyndle learned how to read and write, but she didn't.
Speaking of, she hands him a book at one point, and he just sort of grows into it. And almost literally by osmosis, reads the entire book instantly. Because he just sort of grows all these little tendrils and feels the difference between the ink and the paper, and he knows where it all goes together. I'm just like, okay, that's a neat trick, you know?
I like that. That's fun.
But, yeah, so she starts writing, and of course, then the scribes come back, and she's in the middle of this conversation, and she's got to run back and forth and dodge them, and then finish.
Well, and then the reply comes because she sent it right before, and they try and cut her off, but she gets the message out, and then she's being chased, and I think she's being held, and she can't get loose yet, and that's when the reply comes.
Yeah,
I think you're right, because she finally runs out of osmosis.
Yeah, there's like, Gox, Prime, Aka 6, whatever, something or other.
You know, he's like, I decree you're going to give her what she needs.
Well, you give her everything she asks for as if I were asking for them. It's just like, okay then.
Well, and I love that scene because it also shows the interesting interplay that these two countries have where they're kind of under them, but kind of not.
It's basically, we'll humor them so long as it doesn't put us out too much. But in a pinch, we're going to say, see ya.
Well, yeah, when they finally back out, it's because the Everstorm's there. So they're kind of
Right.
like, yeah, that takes precedent over you having us research stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
And she's like, you got to do it because
it's happening tonight.
because
he said so.
and stuff.
Yep. And then of course the Everstorm starts coming, and they just like batten down the hatches because she's and I love she's trying to find a radiant. So what does she have them look for? Anything strange.
And they're like, that's really broad.
And so they point out a few things that aren't quite what she's looking for. She's like, okay, no. Strange like this. And she takes the seeds from one of the pancakes and grows them. She's like, something like that. And they're just sort of staring at her like,
That's not right.
That's different.
That's unusual.
I like her next thought is, now I can't eat the pancake.
Yep.
No, the other thing I did like when they're the Everstorm's starting and she and Wyndle have to go try and find the room that the nails are they
No, the Skybreakers, the Squires.
Yeah, the other they're in, and she can't sneak into the room to listen to him, and poor Wyndle has to. That's when he really shows how brave he's gotten and goes in there.
One of my favorite lines he has is when she's actually like fighting him, and he's just like, "Oh, please don't get stabbed by anything sharp or blunt."
Well, and the fact that poor Wyndle is supposed to keep secrets, and he's so bad at them, because he keeps saying, don't. I don't want you to just hit people with me. And she's just like,
I don't want to be a sword. And she's like, why would I do that?
Why would I hit people with you? And he's just like, I can't tell you. You have to figure it out yourself.
I can't. Why?
What? Poor Wyndle. He's just so put upon, but he's a horrible secret keeper.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then she has a conversation with Zeth. And this is the first we've seen Zeth since he was handed a particular sword.
Yes.
That apparently likes her.
He's like, the sword likes you. And she's like, yeah, I like the sword too. Right, we'll go with that.
Well, because we know for certain that Lift does not consider herself to be evil.
Yeah.
And just there is absolutely no doubt in her mind that she's doing the right thing. Because it's what she's doing. So
yeah, she feels the nausea when the influence kind of goes over her too, which usually happens when you're not in trouble with it.
Yeah, if you are quote a good person, then you get nauseated.
I love her conversation because he's clearly still going through stuff, and several times he's just like, I don't know if I'm sane. There's voices in the shadows. They take me, and I can't tell whether it's a sane thought or an irrational one. And her response is, okay.
Talking to the crazy guy with the sword. He's scary.
Well, it's not just scary. He leaves an after image when he moves.
Yes, that's right. This is the first time we saw that.
Does that happen in later books, too?
It happens in Oathbringer as well.
Okay, I'd forgotten that, because
Yeah, basically,
like,
it's a result of him coming back slightly wrong from the fabrial that Nail used to bring him back.
Yeah,
I'd forgotten about that.
I think in Oathbringer, Seth refers to it as like when he stapled his soul back, it's not quite there. It's a little loose.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure will not come back in any way. Brandon doesn't ever foreshadow stuff.
No.
Well, plus, again, Zeth is already ominous. Can you imagine, he moves and then a specter of him moves just a second after?
I always thought it would be pretty close together, but yeah, that's
it's like a mouse trail. And it's just but yeah, and so yeah, Zeth is officially terrifying. Yeah. Right? Just because you see that coming and you're just like, I do not want to be in the same place as you right now.
That's a nope.
Mm-hmm.
The other reason it's awesome is just the fact that at one point, I can't remember, she says something, and when he does, he smiles, but she's just like, but the smile didn't really hit his eyes at all, so it's just really creepy. And it's like, oh, Seth.
Yeah, poor guy. I did like that. He used Nightblood to kind of gauge if what he should do with her, kind of, because she's like hiding in a little corner or down a little alley, not an alley, but like a little hallway, alcove type thing, and she's like, he can totally see me, but he just lets Nightblood he pops him open just enough to get a sense of her, and that's how does he walk away? Or does he talk to her right then? I can't remember.
No, he waits for his the two others
the guys to leave.
To leave, that's right.
To leave, and
that's
then
right.
As soon as they're gone, he's just like, they're gonna you're not gonna be able to stop them, type of thing. And but she does her usual, well, looks like I've been found out.
Yeah.
But then she realizes they've gone off to find the Radiant. And at this point she thinks that it's the old man that she talked to at the amphitheater,
where she said she was the nose.
That's right.
In the body part of humanity, she's the nose.
That's right. Well,
she's
he
like,
has this whole philosophical conversation with her,
which she's completely into. She loves philosophy.
Oh yeah.
Well, and I remember. No, I'm remembering wrong. Never mind. So she goes back and finds him and realizes that, oh no, he is definitely not the Radiant she was looking for.
And he's just fine. She doesn't need to worry about saving him. He's got 2 corpses there. 2 Skybreakers.
Who needs friends when you have corpses?
Yeah.
Well, and then...
And all the little hordlings.
And that's the thing, is then suddenly we find out that he's not quite human.
No.
He's Oogie Boogie from A Nightmare Before Christmas.
But slightly nicer?
Definitely nicer. He's not trying to kill her.
Yeah, he's like,
right.
I don't have a problem with you.
But he's definitely dangerous.
In fact, he's just like, no, I'm an ally to the old Knights Radiant.
Oh, that's right. And he's like, he wants to have a conversation with her later. He says he says we'll talk later.
Yep. And this goes back to the speculation in Words of Radiance at the very, very last scene where Wit is talking to a Kremling.
Oh, that's right.
And it's heavily implied that there's a good chance that is probably not just any Kremling. That is probably part of one of these Amiens
the sleepless.
Yes.
The sleepless.
Who are what is it? Arklo is the
Arklo.
sleepless that she talks to, and I think he admits that they've been watching the different Radiants, and he's like, and they don't seem to think you're important, but I do, and you're worth watching.
And yeah, she's definitely an interesting little bugger. Okay, so she goes into the orphanage because suddenly she realizes, it's what?
I'm remembering before that she got grabbed into the orphanage before she even found Arklo.
Was that right?
Because Stump saw her in the storm and was like, "What are you doing out there?"
That's
and pulls her in.
Stupid child.
Yeah, so I mean, she really does care, because if she really didn't care, she would have left her out there. But she's like, there's this horrible storm. There's a kid out there that, I'm only going to give her 3 meals, but I still can't leave her out there.
Right.
So she shows more of her heart there, that she pulls her in. And so I remember that was something that that Lift noticed, is that, she sneaks out after that and the door is locked and bolted or whatever. And then she notices that the door is broken when she goes back after talking to Arklo.
That's right. Right.
So,
but she goes in, and that's when Nail shows his face.
Yeah, he's already in there,
and he, because he's ready to kill her, and Lift is like, well, I mean, here we go.
Let's do it. And she's already used up a lot of her I can't call it her light, because it's
her investiture.
Investiture, yes. I was like, there's a word. The word is gone. And so she ends up like grabbing like something like a potato, some kind of root vegetable, and uses that as her fuel as she's going up and down the stairs.
Right.
Yeah, she tries to play the most annoying game of keep away in history. And that's kind of fun.
What's the whole concept of the whole grease pig chase?
Oh, yeah.
Wrestling a grease pig, where you're
she
supposed
is a
to
grease
grab
pig,
it,
you're right.
and that's exactly how she works. To the point, she grabs them and shoots out like a cork, And
Yep.
but
Though he outsmarts her with that, though.
I do love this whole scene when they're fighting.
Yeah,
it shows that he is, I have experience with Edgedancers. I know how this works. Whereas every other time we've ever seen her do anything, basically she shows up and people are just like, "What is going on?
Mm-hmm.
How do I deal with this?"
But of course, Nail has been around since there were Edgedancers.
Yeah.
It's just I find it really cool the way he goes about it, and where he starts from a strategic standpoint doing some very cool things to try and counter her. From a moral standpoint, questionable at best.
Yeah.
I remember. The other thing that's interesting is, he knows how to fight Edgedancers, but he still can't quite get her because she fights wrong.
She does everything her own way. She's never had another Edgedancer to teach her. She just
Jordan
does what makes
sense.
And
I have a couple friends who went to a Smash Brothers tournament. And
you've
they
talked
actually
about this before.
progressed much farther in the tournament than, because there were people who, like, these are professional Smash Brothers players. These are pros. And they got a lot farther in the tournament than they should have because all of the moves that their opponents were trying to counter, they didn't do. They sort of fit outside of the meta, and it kind of broke the pattern. And so it's sort of like if you're really good at a game and you're playing against somebody who's a button masher, they're unpredictable because they're just, it's completely confusing because
as a kid, I was the button masher. I would find the cheapest, meanest move and do it over and over and over. It wouldn't always hold me out against my brothers, but it would still let me do a lot better than I probably should have otherwise.
But the thing is, they have trained for somebody who's good, and because of that, somebody who's not good can upset their reactions. Mm-hmm. It's just such an interesting concept, and so Lift is actually able to survive against this guy.
Yeah.
Not because she's more skilled than he is, but because she's very, very unskilled.
Yeah, and she does have the weird thing with her power.
Yes, where she gets it from metabolizing.
Mm-hmm. And Stump actually saves her too, because when she gets
that's right, she
caught,
hits him with a
board,
club or a board.
It's a board or a club or something like that, and so I mean, she goes for it.
Of course, then he smacks her and sends her across the room and wounds her to trying to get Lift to go heal her, and dude, that's just
Lift doesn't
rough.
do it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
But the interesting thing is the way that she finally, for lack of a better term, vanquishes him, is she convinces him that, oh yeah, they were right. This is the desolation. The Voidbringers have returned.
Yeah, they're out on the roof, and she's kind of like, it's right there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love that line where she's like, I can't beat him, so I have to change him.
Right. Mm-hmm. And because, he's been told about, quote, the Voidbringers on the Shattered Plains. And he's like, no, that's that's a fluke.
Yeah.
And suddenly she's just like, look around you. This is not a fluke. This is happening right now.
Yeah.
And that's sort of a whole theme of this story, because Wyndle's like, no, you're doing this. You were happy. You want to help people. And she's like, no, I'm not. Nail is like, no, this isn't a thing. This isn't a thing. We're good. We're good. Everything's fine now. How are you? Stump is like, no, they're lying. Clearly everyone's lying and just trying to take advantage of my orphanage. And just everyone is in denial at all times.
Then they all come out of their denial at the end of the story.
Well, and then Lift speaks the third ideal. Mm-hmm. Which, again, I will listen to those who have been ignored. This is one of the reasons I love Lift and I love the Order of the Edgedancers, because they look for the forgotten ones. And that's always just been a big deal to me. It's so easy for somebody to slip through the cracks. And that's exactly what Lift intends to prevent from happening. People will not be forgotten. Even if you're on your own, I'm here. she'll remember people. She will listen to them. She helps people feel like they matter. And so it's kind of she has the investiture powered ability to heal, but then this is another way to heal. And
feeling validated is a huge thing.
Yeah, and because of that, Edgedancers are among my favorite orders of the 10.
And apparently everyone's pet is an Edgedancer.
No, there were some Elf Callers in there,
Oh, no,
too.
there were a lot of Windrunners, too.
And Windrunners. It was really hard to pin one down for Rosie, but I liked Edgedancer. Because she could find that forgotten ball, too. Mm-hmm. She will find it.
Yeah. She will find the balls that are forgotten.
Oh, yes. That you didn't know existed.
I remember, what was it? You emptied out the window well.
Oh,
there
yeah.
were a bunch of balls.
So my kids had went and taken like 9 balls. We ended up with 9 balls in our backyard, and they'd all ended up in this window well. My poor dog is like traumatized because she loves her balls, and she's staring down at them, and she cannot get them. So I get in the window well, and I think I recorded part of it. And so like I'm pulling out these balls and chucking them out of the window well because it's deep enough. I have to like step into it to get it out. And she just can't even know. She doesn't know what to do with herself. She's got 9 balls now to play with.
But yeah. And then, of course, the other thing that's interesting is when she finally summons her shard weapon for the first time, it's a rod. It's just a rod. It's not a blade.
Because she's like, I wouldn't know what to do with a sword anyway.
Well, it's a defensive weapon is the thing that's... Because she's not going to... She doesn't try to beat Nail. She heals Nail. Well, I mean, she breaks him and... She starts him on the path to healing.
She gets him to confront the truth.
Which is the first... As we all know, the first step is admitting you have a problem.
Yeah.
She gets him to do step 1 of the 10-step 12 steps. No, this is probably 10 because this is Roshar.
Yeah. Stormlight, that makes sense. 10-step.
But again, and again, she sees that he's broken, and all she does is hold him. This little 13-year-old girl
hugging something that's ancient.
It's so scary.
And until 2 seconds before had been trying to murder her.
Yeah, and then she gives him a hug, and she's like, "Hello, darkness, my old friend."
Did you really just do that?
Oh, darn straight. If you think I wasn't planning it, look at the video. I put it in the side right here. If you didn't see
I'm not even mad. I'm like...
That's not even the worst pun I've made. Going back to Smash Brothers, Ness has a dark costume, and I just remember attacking it, just be like, I attack the darkness.
No. There's an episode of The Simpsons where Ralph Wiggum is given a lot of sugar, and he's just like, I'm happy and angry. That's how I feel about the joke you just made. So
I want you to be afraid of how much you love me.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, consider it next time.
But yeah, so in the end, Darkness, Nail, Nin, Son God.
Best name ever.
He ends up just saying, "Okay, I need some time to myself. I gotta work through a few things.
Yeah, I got some issues to work on.
Can I go home now?"
And he just takes off. And the next thing we see is Lift wearing the scribe's hat and with a plate full of pancakes. And she's like, "Okay,
on top of having the scribe's hat, I have to have Stump's pancakes specifically."
He's like, "These are your pancakes, right?
Right. These are yours.
These are yours." Why? Because that's what her favorite food is. Yours. And
she turns Wyndle into a fork.
and accidentally breaks the plate because she stabs through it because
stabs so hard.
It's a shard blade.
It's shard fork.
Yay!
I love how afterwards Wyndle's just like, I'd look good as a shard blade, wouldn't I?
He's like, I was a majestic fork, wasn't I?
I wasn't. He's like, maybe I would look good. He's like, you want to be a sword now? She's like, well, just a ceremonial one for show.
Not for use. No, of course not.
There is a regalness to it, Just like, oh, Wyndle. I love Wyndle.
Oh.
One of the other great lines she had, it was something about how they were being practical about things. Is how they built the city of
Oh, with
Rock
like
and
rinsing
roll.
out the water and everything.
what's the name of the city? I forget.
Yada. Right?
Yada. Yeah,
Yada.
she they built it with the shard blades because they
ground's
rented
so
out
flat.
they rented out the ones from not Thalen. Dang it! Why am I? What's the city
Malithkar?
that she just came from?
Oh.
Azir?
Azir.
Azimir.
They just rented out the swords and they cut the city out of the stone. She's
That's
like,
right.
it's like, wow, they're using something grand for something so small, and it's like very practical. She likes that, like using the throne to reach a shelf. She really shouldn't have gotten in trouble for that.
Yeah.
Noodle incident. And then, of course, the greatest betrayal of this entire story, when she finds out that one of the 10 types of pancakes
It's just
is just a concept.
She's
she's just like,
"You lied."
You lied about food.
Doesn't she look at the guard and tell her that she lied?
Yeah,
think
she's
it's
like,
the
I'm
guard.
going to tell on you all the darkness.
That's right, because, I mean, there's got to be a law about this somewhere. He's going to take them down. And now darkness is her friend. So. I love it.
Because, of course, everyone's her friend.
Yep. Guys, I had some issues with Lift at first. I think that's one of the reasons that I had trouble getting into this the first time, because I was so stuck on the whole awesomeness thing the first time I read Words of Radiance.
And
so I
I'm
was
still
like,
not
there's-
over it, for the record. But
But the thing, it was
I
so
don't
bad
know.
that I was like, do I really want to read an entire story from this girl's perspective?
Whereas I was like, gimme.
I'm okay with more Lift. I also love the fact that, or I think it's in this. Is it in this book, or is it in Oathbringer, where Wyndle's just like, you keep using the word awesomeness like all the time.
It must be an Oathbringer,
Okay,
because I don't
okay.
remember it in this one.
I couldn't remember because I've read both of them recently now, and so they're starting to blur.
I don't remember that recently. So.
But yeah, so any other thoughts on this before we move on to other exciting things?
It being a mom, a lot more of the scenes where she's remembering her mom hit me a lot harder. So
Again,
like, and
the
it's
fact-
and like my 4-year-old is really super cuddly right now. He's also really super getting in trouble. But then he's like, can I give you a hug, Mom? And he'll like come up and he'll just like hug my leg like all the time. And part of me's like, get off me, you just broke something. And part of me's like, oh, but you're so cute. So it's really interesting
Which he's
seeing
counting
the kid.
on.
yeah, he knows
Yeah,
that.
of course. Oh, yeah. He
knows.
Nothing's more dangerous than a small child that knows they're
But-
cute.
I think those scenes particularly, I think, are a testament to Brandon's writing, because when she talks about it, she's got her walls up. But the mention of it is just that slightest crack in the armor, and you see it, and it breaks your heart, because you realize this is, again, a little girl who's been forced to grow up way too fast.
Yeah, we don't know when her mother died.
But, I mean, even, because she went to the Night Watcher 3 years prior, if I remember right.
So her mom probably died before that.
Which means she was at most 10
Yeah.
when this happened.
And that's
That's
not very old.
rough. And so. But yeah, okay. So, moving on from the discussion of the story, guys, it's time for another giveaway.
Oh, right.
So,
Someone should have random.org up.
indeed, someone should. Just as a reminder, we are giving away a set of 2 Cobalt Guard patches. The patches, the personal guard of Dalinar Kholin, of the Kholin family in particular. And the goal that we're giving 2 away so that you can keep one, our winner can keep one for themselves and share one with a friend. So we'll let Jordan get our number
Okay,
up.
here we are. Clicking the button, and the number is 16.
Are you serious? That's hilarious.
Let me hear. I want the visual proof here. Give me just one sec. This is good radio. As I get a visual.
Hey, you're being like me, Jordan. All about the visuals.
All right, and that goes to one of our patrons, Beth K. So congratulations on that, and we will reach out to you, get your information, and get that sent out to you as soon as possible.
See, that's 16.
Of course, we want to thank our patrons for helping out. And right now, we want to give a special thanks to Brandon Sanderson's online store at store.brandonsanderson.com for sending us all these amazing goodies. There's so many really cool things. And Jordan, what do you have to say about that?
Well, first of all, those patches are pretty cool, I think.
They are pretty cool. I mean,
you can put it on a variety of sources. I still have to find where I could put a patch. But there is one item in there that, whilst that's pretty cool, there is an item that if I had to describe its coolness, it would fail because it's much cooler than that. Some might say it's awesome, actually.
Okay, you're weird. Anyway, as always, again, thank you to our patrons who make it possible for us to keep creating new episodes. The show will, of course, continue to be free for everybody, but if you want to support us, drop us $1 or $2 per episode. You can go to patreon.com/Cosmere Studies. When you become a patron, you get immediate access to our Discord channel filled with a lot of awesome people. We have some fun discussions. We have some laughs. We have some divergent... we go into some interesting places. It's fun. Mm-hmm. And of course, people in there will share other stuff that they're doing. So there's a lot of spreading the love. On Discord, you can continue the discussion about the Cosmere. You can continue your discussion about the show. You can have discussions about whatever you want because it's just a good community with a lot of geeky interests. You also get bonus content like the 6-7, which is a collection of 7 pieces of content that the 3 hosts find every episode. And they come out in the weeks between episodes, and we just want to share it with you because we think it's neat. You will also get early access to bonus content that we produce. Beyond that, our patrons are automatically entered into our giveaways, just like the winner tonight was one of our patrons who won with that entry. To clarify, our giveaways are not exclusive to patrons. They're free to enter for anybody. The patrons just get their first entry automatically. And of course, the most important thing that you do by becoming a patron is you help us to continue making the show and improving the quality and just making it a better show. We appreciate everything that you do, so thank you. We are still saving up lore questions and aluminum foil hat theories from our listeners, and we really, really need people to write in. We're getting closer to We've only got a month and a half until...
Yeah, we have 3 episodes.
Until that episode.
Yeah.
Or so I guess 2 months from tonight is when we would have it. And we need more questions. So please write us your questions, write us your comments, your ideas, your theories, anything that you want us to discuss on the show. We're basically basing that episode around fan letters. So write in and we'll try to talk about it on that episode. We want to hear your theories. We want to hear your ideas. We want to hear your favorite characters. We want to hear feedback from you. So let us know. You can write in by writing to cosmerestudies@gmail.com. We each, of course, have our own personal projects. Amy, where can we find your stuff outside of the show?
On Facebook, I'm Coincidence Cosplay and Props. On Twitter, @CoincidenceCosp, because my name is too long. And on Instagram, @coincidence_cosplay. And right now, I'm mostly trying to finish up my Queen Eleanor costume from Brave. And I've got the wig pretty much done. I just need to do the cording on the outside. And I am finishing up the belt pieces. They're all 3D printed. So I'm getting really close on that. And it'll be nice to have that done so then I can start on other projects.
Okay, cool. And Jordan, how about you?
You can all find me at twitch.tv/splicestream, where I am streaming Amiibo content. I'm actually going to be sponsored here for my next tournament, so that's kind of fun. And And yeah, that's mostly what's coming up, unless you're just really into what's going to be happening here soon with Super Mario Maker 2 coming out. I know I am.
Yeah, I'm excited about that too. And of course, when I'm not here, I've got board game reviews over at the Innkeeper's Table at www.innkeeperstable.com, as well as board game related social media posts on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Innkeeper's Table. For those of you who can't become patrons just yet, though, please consider giving us a 5-star review on iTunes, Spotify, whatever program you use to listen to podcasts. Give us a good rating on there, and it'll help us out to bring in new listeners and just grow the audience. Now, in addition to the live episodes of the show that stream on twitch.tv/innkeeperstable every 2 weeks on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, our listeners can find the videos of our podcasts on YouTube or the audio versions on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, basically any other service that carries podcasts. Just do a search for Cosmere Studies. You can also follow us and contact us through Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under the profile at Cosmere Studies. For our next episode, we are heading to the last shard world we'll be visiting in this reread, Taldane. It's a tidally locked planet with a light side and a dark side. White Sand was actually the very first book that Brandon wrote, which he then rewrote as his 8th novel, but what we're going to be looking at is the series of graphic novels based on that 8th book. We'll be dedicating one episode to each volume of the trilogy, and the 3rd volume is actually going to be released just in time to finish up the set. So, read up on that yourself and follow along. We'd love to have you join us for the live stream. So make sure to join us here on Twitch on June 10th, 2019. In the meantime, on behalf of Amy, Jordan, and myself, thanks for listening, and remember, there's always another secret.